And so we go, and I think it's the month of June. So it's the summer after my senior year of high school. And I go with three or four of my friends, and they both had Jeeps. Two of the guys had Jeeps. One was lifted with big tires. The other one was just a Rubicon. It had off-roading tires, but it wasn't, lifted and had all the bells and whistles, if you will. So we go through and we're on Garcon Point, and there's like a little pull-off into some muddy areas, kind of off in the wilderness a little bit. And so we get back there, and there's a big mud hole. And so the guy with the big lifted Jeep, my friend Seth, he runs through it and just kind of skips across the top. And he goes, "Man, that's too deep for you. Don't do it." And as soon as he says that, my other buddy just guns it straight into the hole. Sinks down to the axles. It's not good. And so this is like maybe 7:30, 7 o'clock at night. And Molly, my wife, was going over to London for her senior trip. And so when we started mudding, she was taking off on her flight. And we go through, and all night long, we're like trying to dig with sticks, trying to shove stuff under the tires to get some traction. And he just keeps sinking lower and lower and lower. And eventually, we just give up, to be frank. We were out there for, I kid you not, I think it was 3:30 in the morning, and we're all covered in mud. And Molly texts me and says, "Hey, I made it." And I text her right back, because her whole flight over to London, we were stuck in this mud hole trying to get out. And so this dude has to call his dad, and his dad gets up for work at like 5 in the morning. So he wakes him up an hour and a half early for work, and he drives back there, and he put him on speakerphone when he called him, and there was a lot of explicit language being used. But anyways, he got us back there. He had a winch on his truck and pulled us out of it. But it was a bad situation at the moment, but it was really fun to look back on. And we did some mud wrestling because we were all really frustrated with each other, and I ended up getting poison sumac all on my face. So it's just one of those summer nights when you're in high school, crazy things happen.
Do you have any footage or perhaps a picture that we could show our listeners of you getting poison sumac?
So I don't know how many pictures I have of the sumac. I know there's some pictures floating around of that night where we're all covered in mud and the tempers were flaring, and we just decided to start wrestling essentially because we were just so frustrated with each other. So there's some pictures of us covered in mud wrestling, but I don't know how many pictures of the sumac we have.
We'll have to share those pictures with our listeners. Nothing like some good mud wrestling.
That's right. And it was just pure, when you're tired and frustrated, everyone's pointing the finger at everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
And I just remember drinking hot Mountain Dews that were in the back seat of his Jeep. And it was the saddest thing. It's 4 a.m, and all we got to drink is dang hot Mountain Dews. Oh, it was terrible, but it was a blast at the same time. So,
yeah, there are very few things that I would want less than a hot Mountain Dew at 4 o'clock in the morning. But
that's the life we lived back then.
That is the life. That is the life we live. At least you were able to stay hydrated.
That's right. That's right. And you also get, like 40 grams of sugar in you at the same time. So it's really it's a win-win.
It is.
So how was your week?
Brother, my week was a whirlwind, if you'll allow me to say that. Lots of good, lots of bad.
Okay.
A little bit in between. On Tuesday, I went to the BJ's restaurant and brew house, and they have this thing called a pizookie.
Oh, yeah.
and it's basically a pizza cookie, or perhaps a cookie that is round with an ice cream on top. And due to the nature of the year that we are in, well, the season of the year that we're in, Halloween specifically, they had what I'm calling the Spooky Pizookie, or the Spooky Pizookie. And that's what I got. Now, they were out of orange ice cream. Well, let me first describe the Spooky Pizookie. It's orange ice cream, cookies and cream cookie, but the cookie is black to elicit some spookiness.
Of course.
And they offer you a bowl of chocolate that hardens as you drizzle it on top of the orange ice cream. And my oh my, so they were out of the orange ice cream, the lady told me. And she said, we're out of the orange ice cream, but it's just vanilla ice cream. And I said, okay, I will have the vanilla ice cream. And then I thought to myself, how do you run out of orange ice cream if it's just food coloring? Can't you just get some food coloring and mix it in? But I guess it does not work like that. So I had the Spooky Pizookie with vanilla ice cream, so it was a little less frightening. So maybe the halfway Spooky Pizookie. Anyway, I would rate that Spooky Pizookie out of 10. I would give it an 8.
Okay.
Pretty dadgum good, if you were to ask me. Now, can you beat the salted caramel? I would say no.
I was about to say, the salted caramel is unmatched.
Salted caramel, then the classic. I'd go classic. And then I'd put the Spooky Pizookie right around there.
Okay.
Right underneath it. That was Tuesday. My week continued on, and it took me to Friday, which is my pickleball day. So my friend Connor and I are out. This is a long-winded story, so if we go too long, it's my fault.
We'll just
cut me off.
We'll just cut you right here.
Yeah. So we're hitting the pickleball courts. We're playing some good games, my friend Connor and I are. And Brandon, my friend Brandon Logue, shout out Brandon Logue. He doesn't listen because he doesn't know I do this yet. But if he ever does listen to this episode, shout out. So we're playing the game. Brandon's left at this point. So it's me, Connor, this guy named Mac, and this guy named Clayton. Now, Mac and Clayton are above 60 years old, retirees who play all the time.
Okay.
Clayton's the best guy out on the courts. Former tennis player, former tennis coach. Mac is pretty excellent himself. Our games finish, and it wasn't in my plan to share this guy's name, just because I didn't ask him, but I am gonna share his name because I've already shared it. So I'm after our games end. It's 12:30 p.m. So it's the middle of the day, and the sun's beaming down on our neck, and we get into a little political conversation. Now, how does a political conversation spark out of pickleball? That remains to be seen, but it's where we found ourselves. And I just threw out the phrase, I'm running for president. And Clayton, the guy I'm talking to, did not think highly of that position. I was told things like, you're never going to make it.
Oh my gosh.
You don't have a chance to win.
Jeez.
So I'm sitting there. I'm like, Clayton, you're the one who brought up this topic and now you're tearing me down? What are we doing? And so we just began to talk about politics. Like why we have the Democrats, we have the Republicans,
right.
And in the middle, which I wouldn't say the middle, but just for reference, we have Unity Party.
I would say the Unity Party is above, not in the middle.
This is what I would say. is, and I was trying to share with Clayton, because Clayton was a professed Christian, and I believe 100%, well, 99.9%, because I don't know the man's internal organs,
right,
i.e. his heart, as to what he truly believes. But I would believe that he would be a Christian, because he said he was. He is practicing some spiritual disciplines that would be evidence in his life that he was. Anyway, we were talking about politics. We're talking about on this earth. Started with Israel and Hamas.
Classic.
Tragic. Absolutely tragic what's going on there. Then it moved toward Democrats and Republicans, and why do all Democrats believe one thing, and why do all Republicans believe one thing? Or do they believe one thing? I would say they don't all believe the same exact things.
Yep.
But Clayton didn't necessarily believe that when it comes to the House of Representatives and the Senate votes, is they all believe the same exact thing. Not moral of the story, but this is a long story, and I'm trying to make it a little shorter, but it's not long story short. I was trying to get to a point to where we recognize that our politics have to be informed by Scripture, right? We can't inform our politics based on what the political party we choose to endorse believes, right? So, as Christians, I would say a Christian would agree with aspects of both sides, both Republicans or Democrats. And the more I think about it, I would actually say perhaps Christians should not agree with anything that Republicans or Democrats believe in, because they're not believing in it from the perspective of Scripture, if that makes any sense. So the principles could be good, but the motivation behind the principles could not be biblical. And that's the kind of thinking that, as Christians in our politics, we have to think about. And are we creating a nation and a world where life can flourish? Are we voting on policies to create a nation and a world where life can flourish? Is that our goal? Are we voting on policies in a way that is informed by Scripture? Is that your goal? These are the questions we must continually think about and examine. I told Clayton straight up, I'm not perfect at this. I don't know every single Scripture to back up every single or inform every single political thing in my life. So there are moments when I immediately think something, and it's like, nope, Scripture doesn't agree with you. And can I humble myself to a point where I am submitting to the authority of the inerrant Word of God? So the conversation with Clayton, it continued, and we can only pray at this point. Yeah, that's a long story. I'm leaving out a lot of details because it was a good 45-minute conversation.
Wow.
In the heat of day where my neck became rather sunburnt afterward. But, I mean, that's why Connor and I decided to go out play pickleball is, one, we need the exercise. 30 minutes a day is critical. 2, you get around community. We've talked about this. How do you live longer? You get around community. How do you live longer in a healthy manner? 3, gotta share the gospel. We gotta find... You're not gonna share the gospel sitting on your couch at home.
Right.
So get off your couch, start moving those legs, start doing some lunges, do some side steps, and proclaim the name of the Lord. Wow! What a start to the podcast. But that was my week. Some of it.
Well, that's...
Sorry.
I feel like
I apologize for the link.
No, you're good. I feel like you don't always go to pickleball, to talk politics or to talk about the gospel necessarily, but as Christians, I think we should always kind of have that have our heads on a swivel, if you will, key into different conversations and say, look, here's I can slide this in here. You know what I mean? And it leads to good conversations like that. I think on the politics, it's so difficult to support candidates from either side because your beliefs will probably align with one person more than the other on either side. But once you say, oh, I back this person, then everything that person does in the 8 years that they're serving in office, people are going to remember you saying, oh, I support this person. And let's say they come out and say, we should kill everyone over the age of 80 because they don't contribute to society. They'll say something crazy like that. And people are going to look back at you and go, don't you support this crazy dude? Why would you support him? So I think that's my dilemma with being outspoken as far as backing certain politicians. But I also just kind of subscribe to the thought that I don't think politicians in general, on the right or the left or in the middle, are really great people. But then again, I don't really know their heart. All we can look at is their actions. So, yeah.
What we would say is that no one is a great person.
Well, of course. But are they acting, are they acting in the best interest of the American people to the best of their ability? And sometimes you kind of wonder if they're doing it for their own personal gain or if they're being a public servant like they're supposed to be. So I think that's the tough part of it, is because everyone, once you get in office, it's so easy to be selfish and just try to be reelected again. But, with the Unity Party, you got to get elected first. So that's kind of our next step. And then we can tackle the rest of the story once we get into office.
Yeah, for sure. And the point of those kinds of conversations is not to sway party. It's more so pointing at the individual and the way they think. So rather than trying to make the entire Republican Party think more toward the gospel, trying to make the entire Democratic Party think more toward the gospel, those who are Christians who identify as a Republican, those who are Christians who identify as a Democrat, we shouldn't, in my opinion, identify as those two things. We should rather identify as a child of God. And then our politics are entirely formed by the Scripture. I've heard it recently said, think of it like an owner's manual think of the Bible like an owner's manual to a car, right? When our car's messed up, we look to the owner's manual. To prevent our car from being messed up, we look to the owner's manual. Why don't we do this in our lives? Why don't we look to the Scriptures for maintenance, for preventative maintenance, for healing, for restoration?
It sounds like a David Chauncey. Is that a
That's a David Chauncey classic.
Called it.
And he's an absolute beast, I would say.
I'll reach out to his team. I think we need to get this man on a subscriber only podcast and do a little interview with this man.
True.
That would be too good. I'll reach out to his team, see if we can get some time alone with him.
Very good. Very good. Now, I could continue on, but I've taken up so much time in this podcast, so tell me about your week, brother.
My week was good. My parents came into town this weekend for my mom's birthday. Her birthday was on Saturday. I think she turned, I can't really remember, to be honest, like 42 maybe. But we got pizza Friday night, which is such a great thing to do. If you're not going to get Chick-fil-A Friday after work, pizza on a Friday night is unmatched. And And then we went out to a nice restaurant last night, which is Saturday, on her birthday. There's a cool restaurant that's on the water, on Longboat Key. And so that was a blast as well. So it was a good weekend, spending time with them. And then just a couple minutes ago, we're shooting this on Sunday night. But as you can see, I'm wearing my jacket. We've got a cold front coming through, and Molly made some tomato basil soup with grilled cheeses cut on the diagonal, because that's the only way to do it. But it's
what kind of bread?
Oh, when the cold weather rolls in, I think the high tomorrow is 74. I'm taking my dang North Face jacket into work. It's going to be chilly. So it's been a great...
What kind of bread was this grilled cheese on?
White bread. It crisps up real nice. But the cheese is Tillamook.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got the cheapest white bread you can buy, and one of the more premium cheeses that you could put in between the two, pieces of bread, and a little bit of Duke's mayo on the outside to get that crisp, because it's got twang. But it was an excellent dinner, and it's really given me the energy to get to this podcast and really give it all I've got. So,
well, I don't want to hold you back. I want you to feel free to emit everything you have on this podcast.
Well, look, I feel like I do that. I'm a man of few words. So the words that I do say on the podcast are really kind of all that I can conjure up. But
you save them throughout the week.
I'm the quietest person throughout the week. Someone asks me a question, and I just give them one-word answers. I'm like, look, I got to do an hour-long podcast at the end of the week, okay? I got to save these bad boys up. So
that makes sense, man.
But yeah, it was a good week. Like I said, the cold weather's rolling in, and I couldn't be happier. It's one of my favorite times of the year.
That's beautiful.
What have you been watching in sports?
Well, Texas Longhorns were on a bye week, so I had to watch something a little less heart, whatever. It makes your heart beat less. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Texas Longhorns raises my heart rate in a way because they're always up. They're always winning at some point, and then they seem to blow the leads in the important games. Enough about them, though. I was looking and watching a recap of the World Gravy Wrestling Championship. Yeah. If our listeners are just listening and not watching, Brett has just made a face of confusion. And I agreed. I am in agreement with that face of confusion.
And disgust is kind of a 50-50 mixture there.
Yeah. So these people come from all around the world to this one place in a Scandinavian country, I believe. And it's brown gravy. We should get that right. Not the southern Tasty Freeze Texas Roadhouse white gravy.
I was going to ask if it was sausage gravy or something actually good,
Just brown gravy, like that you put on a pot roast,
right?
If you will.
Or like a turkey Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yes. So these people come from all around the world, and they gather with one another to wrestle. And hundreds, if not thousands, of liters of gravy are dumped as they are wrestling. And I'll give you the report. So it says, scooping the accolade in the men's division was Rain Gravy. That was his persona,
his rapper
if
name.
You will. His rapper name. Now, in the women's, in front of hundreds of spectators, the Baku Bavarian has won. Now, I don't know if I said that right. B-A-C-U-P. Baku. I read it as a little French. But but I'm not sure. But it does lead me to ask you this. If you had to have a rapper, wrestler, gravy name, what would you name yourself?
That's tough. I mean, I feel like I would go with white gravy. I mean, short, sweet. It's true. I'm white. And if you only listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you might not know that about us. But we are Caucasian males, and so I think white gravy would be a great nickname there.
Rather than the Caucasian gravy.
Look, we could go with that too. I just don't want people to get too fixated on race. That probably happens enough these days.
This makes sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome. And would you be chocolate gravy or?
While that is, I believe, the best gravy to ever be invented, I would have to choose. See, I haven't given much thought to this.
So you asked me a question,
Perhaps,
and you didn't even have the answer for yourself prepped up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't care about myself. I care about you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Great Googly Gravy. It's a play off of Great Googly Moogly, but I'm going for the, oh my goodness, what is the A word?
Alliteration.
Alliteration. Great Googly Gravy.
I like that.
Comes in last place.
It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Say it 10 times fast.
That's what they called me in high school. Oh man, what kind of sports have you been seeing?
Oh, goodness. Well, I didn't watch any gravy wrestling, unfortunately. I mean, it sounds like something that I'd really be into, but really the only sports I watched, because my parents were in town, we watched the first quarter of the Florida Gators football game at home, and then we had to drive out to dinner. And so I paused the game, recorded it, and didn't look at my phone for, 3 hours or so. Came back and watched it, and it was incredible. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I think we were down by 10 points with 8 minutes left, and the Gators drive down. They've got an opportunity to possibly kick a field goal. Napier decides to go for it on fourth and 1, and it pays off. They scored the touchdown. Our defense gets a stop, which had been an issue all day, and they roll back through and throw a deep bomb with maybe like a minute left in the game to go up. And so it was an incredible comeback. God was smiling on the Gators, I guess. That's all I can say. It was an incredible game. So I'm not sure if you watched it or not.
I did watch it. I thought it was a great game. I enjoyed Coach Billy Napier's post-game interview where he said, "Can you believe we get paid to do this job? I'll tell you what, I just love these guys so much. We're building something here." And I thought to myself, that is a good man.
I said the same thing. We were on the couch watching it, and I was like, man, this dude, he just seems authentic. He seems like a great guy. And it kind of shows in his recruiting. He's doing really well this year recruiting. And I think kids can see how authentic he is, and they can tell that he actually cares about their success and, success after football's over as well. So, great guy. I've questioned a lot of his, coaching calls and things like that. But then again, I'm not making millions of dollars. I just sit on the couch and scream at the TV, So that's kind of the difference between my life and his.
Is that a healthy practice?
I think so, yeah. Letting off a little steam. My son looks at me like I'm crazy. But I'm sure in a few years' time he'll be doing the same thing, and that's what I'm really looking forward to most out of fatherhood.
Yeah.
Saturday mornings in the fall, and me and him can both just scream our disdain at different people. So that'll be really fun.
I can't wait to witness such an event.
Yeah, you're welcome to join in as well.
Thank you. I did see that the Colorado Buffaloes blew a 29-0 lead. And we've talked a lot about the Colorado Buffaloes. And I couldn't help, and this may be a public confession of sin, but I could not help but delight in the Stanford Cardinal comeback. And we've talked about the Stanford Cardinal because their mascot's just a tree. But this is just going to be a little funny that I've done, but it could be discouraging. It could be seen as a discouragement. Is I was on the TikTok, scrolling through the TikTok, and someone posted Deion Sanders's post-game speech to his players after they blew the lead. And if you recall, after they beat, I forget whatever team it was, we were talking about Deion's mother coming in and talking about don't disrespect my son.
Colorado State, I think, was the game.
Yes. And then afterward, Deion said, "Give me my theme music." So I was watching this video of his post-game post-game speech to his players. And he was standing in the exact same spot he was when all of the mother and give me my theme music happened. And so I looked in the comments. I typed in the comments. I typed out, "Give me my theme music," and pressed send. And I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Many of our listeners may not think that's absolutely hilarious, but I'm still laughing right now. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw that one in there. And if you find it sinful, then I publicly confess that sin. But I'm feeling pretty good about it.
It's hilarious, honestly. I mean, the man goes from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, and I don't know. I mean, I was certainly cheering for Stanford. They've got that beautiful, beautiful tree on the sideline as they're, running up and down the dang sidelines. Just a tree with arms and legs sticking out. Oh,
I can't wait until it's Christmas, though.
True. Hang some dang ornaments on the man. But, yeah, I mean, you could kind of tell their players at halftime. I mean, they're usually cocky, but abnormally so after that. They thought they had it locked down. And Stanford, the nerds were rolling, I'll say that. And they made some plays and beat them in overtime. Yeah, I don't know how you blow a lead that big with the athletes that they have, but pride cometh before the fall is all I can say.
That's a great way to put it, my friend.
And he should probably take a note. I think it was Alexander the Great had someone with him at all times, whispering in his ear, "Pride cometh before the fall." Keeping him humble. I think Prime could probably use a little. He should invest in a servant like that reminds him to stay humble. But then again, he could just hire him to play his theme music 24/7 as well. And keep him pumped up. So he would probably do that over, the ladder. But, yeah, we'll see how they finish up the season. But I think all the hype from the TCU game has thoroughly died down. And I'm more than happy that is the case. So, but a word from our sponsor. As you know, for the past few days, my parents have been in town. Every single night they were with us, I have been woken up by my dad's stinky big toe. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to embarrass him, but it just got to be too much for me, frankly. and I kept waking up. Luckily, the toter guard, with toter guard, I was able to spray his hairy phalanges with something that would allow myself and my child to sleep better at night. And now this is a product that you spray on your feet. I'll be honest, as far as genetics go, I got the same feet as my dad. So I'm in the same situation. I sprayed his feet, I sprayed my feet, and guess what? I went into Stetson's crib and I sprayed his little piggies too. So it runs in the family. We've got hairy, stinky toes, but thanks to Toter Guard, we're able to kind of remedy this issue.
So if you don't mind sharing, how many hours and how deep were your sleeps in between? Because I think that would give our listeners some more convincing on to get this product.
Yeah, so before Toter Guard, I was probably waking up every 45 minutes because I just get intermittent whiffs, if you will. And then I sprayed that bad boy and I slept for 7 hours straight. So it's long lasting. You have to reapply after you take a shower. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the wonder of Toter Guard and how their product is just so useful in all aspects of life.
So do they have any melatonin in this product to help you sleep, or is it strictly a scent preventer?
It's strictly a scent preventer because I sprayed it on my dad. He sleeps great as it is, so he didn't need any melatonin. I mean, if it did have melatonin, I'd take that junk right to the kisser, right down the hatch, so that I can sleep through the night. But no, it's strictly a scent deterrent. And I think with hunting season coming up, it's not a bad idea. Get some of this sprayed on your boots out in the woods as a little scent repellent, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for sharing. I know that was a little transparent of you to share. So it takes a brave boy to do such a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm transparent about my life on the podcast. My dad is a faithful listener, but I don't think he would mind me sharing that about him. But who knows? I may get a call tomorrow afternoon. We'll see.
We will see. Well, brother, what have you been seeing reality television-wise? Because we know with reality TV, a new episode drops of something every single week. Every week,
yeah. So we're coming up kind of the end of the season of Real Housewives of New York. A lot of the drama, and I've said this before, is kind of self-fabricated because they redid the whole cast. But there's one particular couple, Jessel and Pavitt, and her husband, Pavitt, he takes these flights to Vietnam for the miles. And he only goes for 2 days, but it's a super long flight. And a lot of the other couples are kind of insinuating that he's going there for nefarious reasons, if you know what I mean. Maybe extramarital situations going on there. But whenever they ask him about it, he just defends it and says, look, I got a cheap flight. I want to get away from my kids, and I want a banh mi sandwich. So I kind of respect the man for it. He's upfront about it. But his wife is very defensive, which makes everyone else super curious if there's, some extracurriculars going on there. But really, that's kind of the only drama that's going on in Roni. But who knows? Maybe this week, it actually airs on Sunday nights. So after we get wrapped up filming here, I'll turn it on and we'll see if Pavitt's going for banh mi sandwiches or going for some other questionable reasons.
Now, you may have mentioned this before and I missed it, but what does a banh mi sandwich look like? What kind of items are we working with?
I honestly have no clue. It sounds like a Vietnamese sandwich. He brought it up. If I had to guess, some sort of beef But outside of that, I honestly have no clue. So maybe we'll do something in our next episode, a little sandwich breakdown, and we can do some research on the banh mi sandwich.
I like that plan. I would love to try the banh mi sandwich one day. But another week, another episode of Southern Charm. And boy, was this one a doozy. I'll be honest, I wasn't fully engaged the entire time because I was doing a little work here and there. But I found myself having to rewind because I wanted to be so engaged because it was action-packed,
right,
for lack of a better word or term. And we really got to see some sides of people that we hadn't seen before. And I believe we saw a little interaction between Austin, Shep, Taylor, and Olivia. And do you remember where we left off last week?
Last week we left off, we were at Whitney and Patricia's house, and Shep and Austin were sitting down having a glass of champagne together, and Shep asks Austin, "Did you and Taylor hook up?" And Austin says, "Define hooking up." And then the screen goes black. Super dramatic. So that's where we left off in the previous episode.
That's important information. It seems like eons have gone on since then.
That's right.
So it turns out, if you don't mind me sharing, have you seen the episode?
Oh, I've seen it. Of course.
Okay, very well. Turns out they did a little tonsil hockey.
That's one way to put it.
And it seems as if the goalies were not there. There was a lot of scoring going on. Now that's where they said it stopped, but there's been some allegations that no way it stopped there. It just doesn't stop there.
Right.
I'm not in the business of predetermining what all went on, but we did begin to see this narrative that really come into play that Shep is a victim in all this.
For the first time in the show's history.
And I was thinking to myself, I feel bad for the guy. And if you watch the 8 seasons before that, you think that guy's a terrible person.
Exactly.
But it would be tough sledding if I were him. I'm not him, but if I were him, what he's going through is a tough situation.
No doubt. And I think to have your, a friend that you've known for a long time sit across from you and say, "Hey, I made out with your ex-girlfriend like a month or two after y'all broke up." Not the best look for Austin. I've said it before. I don't think he's a great person. But look, none of us are. But yeah, like you said, they said that it stopped there. I feel like, Taylor, she lied to Olivia because she said, "Did anything happen between y'all?" And she said no. I think she even said, "Hand on the Bible." And I came on this podcast and said, look, I don't really believe her. Yet let your yes be yes and your no be no. And turns out she lied. And so she is, they kind of concocted this plan beforehand of like, all right, we're gonna control the narrative here. We're gonna tell everybody that nothing happened. And so she has lied to multiple friends. And then Austin, comes out and says it the first opportunity. And they meet up afterwards, and he's like, "Oh, it feels so good to get this off my chest. I felt so guilty about it." And she's like, "I've been lying to my friends for weeks, and you just come out the first time somebody asks you and tells you what happened. So she looks like a terrible person. He looks like a horrible person for, I mean, kind of letting her take the fall. Like, she really doubled down on it. And he did not go with the plan. I'll say that.
Yeah. And in that moment, whenever he was telling Shep, like, dude, yeah, we kissed, I thought Shep's response was incredible. The amount of grace he extended to Austin, it leaves me speechless. Knowing who Shep is, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The extension of grace there was pretty remarkable.
I would say it was probably the most mature move we've seen from Shep across his whole, tenure on the show. Because his whole persona is like, trust fund baby, don't really have to work. I've been babied my whole life, and I'm like 43, and I'm going to continue to act like a child, and nobody really cares. To now, all of a sudden, he's the victim, and he's extending grace and being mature about everything. I was like, who is this guy? But the party at the end, he went out and shot a bunch of pheasant, and they have this big pheasant, cookout at his friend's house, and everybody's drinking and arguing and pointing fingers, and he like stands up with his drink. He's like, can't we all just be happy? Can't we put it behind us and be happy? I'm like, Shep is the only real person at the table here. Other than Paige and Craig, of course, because they're fun as well.
I do really love Paige and Craig. They are pretty remarkable. And then the whole Shep and Shep's dog and then Taylor interaction was... I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I almost cried watching him. It
was emotional.
You feel so bad. He's watching his ex-girlfriend just pet and, rub his dog, and the dog hasn't seen Taylor in months. And he's just so happy to see her. And he's just standing off to the side watching this happen, and he just is like wiping his eyes like, golly, I'm gonna freaking cry watching this, dude. It was definitely really sad to watch.
I'm with that same sentiment. I just didn't know if I was being too emotional. I wanted someone to affirm my feelings.
Well, you should be affirmed, because I was feeling the same way.
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you what. Southern Charm has been pretty excellent. Another thing to keep on our radars is that Winter House, Summer House's sister, is coming on October 24th. And I think there could be some good things in store for us for Winter House as well.
I think so. I mean, anytime you get Kyle Cook and I guess Amanda Cook now is her name, anytime you get the two of them together with friends, whether it's Summer House or Winter House, the dude knows how to party, and he's a fun guy. So they brought on some people, I think from Below Deck is where they were originally from.
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with them, but like I said, if it's got Kyle Cook and he's partying, it's going to be a great time. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's in Stowe, Vermont, which is just like a cool little ski town. And I would like to take a little...
No.
I'd like to take a little fall trip up there. I think would be a blast.
This year, it's in Steamboat Springs, Colorado.
No way.
Which you have been. Yeah.
Oh. They've got to go to the dang Mahogany Ridge, the restaurant.
That's right.
Man, I didn't know
we'll have to recommend that.
I didn't know they were going out west for it. That's crazy. Because his family, I think his family has a house in Stowe. Like his grandma lives there and stuff. And so it's kind of a village feel, like small ski town. But Steamboat, I mean, that's Ski Town, USA. So they're really kind of climbing the ladder, jumping to the top, really. So that'll be a little more interesting to watch this season.
Yeah. I'm excited. And if anyone from the Bravo TV network is listening, don't forget that we have asked Amanda Batula Cook to come onto this podcast and share some about her life, and we have not heard back. So if anyone has any connections, we would love to have her on as a guest. I think our listeners and watchers would be really excited about this dynamic that would happen with her on.
I agree.
But
I think it's her team is to blame, because if she personally saw the invite, I think she'd jump at the opportunity.
Oh yeah.
But I think her team might be running a little block there, if you know what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying. And well, quite frankly, it's that time of year again where I had my boat cleaned to remove those pesky barnacles. The service came in with the scuba equipment and cleaned my boat for $4,000. That's a lot of money. I'm still emotional about it. They practically laughed in my face at how expensive it is because there's nothing I can do. However, a new startup contacted me with an invention called the Sheep's Head 2.0. The Sheep's Head 2.0 is a suction device that autonomously cleans barnacles from the bottom of your boat. It operates similar to a pool cleaner and moves back and forth, grinding off barnacles with its rotating teeth. Finally, my 30-foot Boston whaler is sparkly clean, and I don't have to deal with those rascals taking advantage of me again. Go to flowboat.com to get your discount today.
Wow. I take it you had a bad experience with the underwater boat cleaners a week or so ago. Is that right?
It seems that way. I mean, the service came in with the scuba equipment. Tell me what that means.
You know, like underwater scuba equipment. Like the oxygen, they go underwater, they clean the bottom of the boat, you know?
Ah.
You're just so rich that you have no clue how people clean your boat, dude.
I hire these people. I just say, please clean my boat. And then I saw the bill and it was $4,000. I was like, my goodness, that's 1/20th of what I paid for this boat.
Right. Well,
I get that boat cleaned 20 times. I've just might as well have paid for a new boat.
I don't know who you're buying your Boston whalers from, but if I don't know 4,000 divided by 20, but I need your boat retailer is what I need.
4,000 times 20 would be 80,000.
Which I would think for a 30-foot Boston whaler would still be a deal.
Oh, yeah. Well, I only get the best deals. But it's because I have the connections. But I did not have a connection to a boat cleaner until I found my suction cup.
The Sheep's Head 2.0.
2.0. 1.0, they must have gone to trial. The poorer people used it. He came back with bad results. Oh, man. It's a tough life being so rich out here due to our podcast.
Oh, gracious. Well, I want to get into music. That's what I want to get into.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get away from your maritime woes and let's get into the song of the week. So what is your song of the week? As you freaking suck down your water glass.
Well, this song makes me need water, if you know what I'm saying. I don't think he knows what I'm saying.
I don't.
But I'm going to say it anyway. This song is called Potential by Jed Harrelson. Now, one thing you need to know about Jed is Jed does music in Nashville, and if we know anything about Nashville, it is the sight and the sound and the home and the serenity and the serendipity of country music. And you may be thinking, Jed Harrelson, country singer. Luke Bryan, country singer. No. Jed has an element of funk in his music. I was on my walk today, and I was listening to this song, and I just began to dance on the side of the road. And many began to honk at me. And I began to dance even louder. And one person got out of the car. They drove on the side of the road, got out of the car, and began to dance with me. So I took my AirPod out. I had Jed Harrelson out on the loudspeaker of my phone, and we were dancing. And that is just a little bit of the potential that you could find in Potential by Jed Harrelson. His sound is unique, and I am what they would call, well, is fiend an appropriate word for the podcast?
Fiend?
Yeah. F-I-E-N-D.
I guess it depends on the context, but yeah, sure.
I'd say I'm a fiend for a saxophone.
There you go. Yep.
Any song with a smooth, delightful saxophone will have my ears and hips moving in sync with one another, doing a little wiggle, if you will. And this is what Potential has brought to me. So, highly recommend the song.
Man, that's great.
For the sounds.
Are you a Careless Whisper fan?
Oh, Careless Whisper was where I got my starts of the wiggle. A little wiggle of the ears.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And a little wiggle of the hips.
Okay. Dang, okay.
How about you? What kind of songs have you listened to?
Well, my song of the week is, it's in honor of my mom's birthday, but it's an absolute banger, and it really gives you that, that movement in your head and your neck and your shoulders, and it moves all the way down to the tips of your piggies. So your whole body's just moving like a dang squid. But it's 1999 by Prince, and it's so good. It's a throwback. Prince is just iconic, really. It's a song from the 80s, but it's about, the world's going to end when the clock strikes midnight, transitioning from 1999 to 2000. So let's all dance and be a little crazy, with our bodies. But it's a great song. I haven't been listening to a whole lot of throwback music. I've been listening to a lot more modern music, but this one took me back a little bit, and it's a really, really good one.
That's a good word. So your mother was born in 1999?
I was born in 1999.
Ah.
The album was released in 1982, I believe. So she was, that was her prime time right there, was the 80s. And so she's a big Prince fan, along with a lot of other 80s music. People her age, they talk about the 80s like it's, I don't know, the greatest period of all time. They had some pretty good music, but I don't know. I don't know what it's like to live back then, and I'll never experience that.
Yeah. So you would say your mother's washed if 80s were her prime time. Is that what you're saying?
That she's what?
Washed.
I don't think I understand the question. Wash, like washing clothes? Washing dishes? Washed up?
No. Washed up.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't know the lingo.
You said she was in her prime in 1980.
Oh, I'm not saying she's washed, if that's the new lingo. I'm not saying she's washed at all. No, quite the contrary, actually.
All right. Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Well, if our listeners don't know, we have a, quite frankly, podcast that you've put together. Not a podcast, a playlist that you've put together of all of our songs of the week. You are listening to the Quite Frankly podcast.
Thanks to the supporters of the Quite Frankly podcast, we have launched a new podcast that will air every Monday morning called Quite Frankly, and I hope you all tune in. Unfortunately, it will take the place of the previous Quite Frankly podcast, but it will be covering the exact same content that the other podcast did, so we're excited to announce that.
Yes.
But yes, we do have a playlist, and it'll be updated every week, but it's got our songs of the week. And whenever I put it together, I put it on shuffle, and it's just such an eclectic composition. I called it, I think it's a cosmic gumbo, personally. And now adding a little bit of, Prince, that's like dang smoked paprika. Add a little bit of that in there.
That's right.
You never know what's
hot
going to
Hungarian too.
It's so good. So yeah, but we'll
I love it.
We'll be putting that out on Spotify, and I think that's going to be, after everyone finishes the podcast, they're going to immediately turn to that playlist, and it'll get you home every single day.
It will do that. Well, brother, any parting thoughts for our people?
I don't believe so. We still have merch that is on sale. We've got some pretty good sales going the past couple weeks. But look, everyone's buying this stuff up. You better get it now before we run out of stock, because it could take a while to get it back in. So,
yeah, we had a loyal listener who purchased a coffee mug. She actually asked about a coffee mug, and we had it created, so we can create special orders for you to purchase. You just head over to flobo.com and insert one of those contact forms and just ask. Just ask. The worst thing you can get is a no. Best thing you can get is an absolutely yes. Here's a link to purchase. But yeah, as always, we love you deeply. We love you generously. And we're going to see you in 7 days.